everybody. Thank you for joining in today for our Breakfast with the Mayors, and what a special time this is with Franklin tomorrow and all that's happening in our own community. And we're so blessed and so thankful to live where we live. And I'm Jeff Simmons, lead pastor here at Rolling Hills Community Church, and we're so thankful to be able to host Breakfast with the Mayors. And so I'm going to open us in a word of prayer, then I'm going to turn it over to Mindy and Patrick, and so let us pray together. Father God, thank you for today, a new day of life, God. Thank you, Father, that we can join together virtually, Father, in person, and what a privilege that is. And God, I thank you for our community. God, I thank you for our mayors. I thank you, Father, for the way that you have given them wisdom and that you're working through them. I pray protection, Father, over our city, over our county, God. I pray, Father, for health. I pray, God, for healing. And Lord, I pray for our land, and just be with our state, be with our country, Father, during this time. And God, we need you, and we are so grateful to live where we live, and Father, to have the leaders that we have. And so bless them, God, and bless this time today. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen, amen. Thanks so much, Mindy. So glad. Thank you. Thanks, Patrick.
Well, good morning. I'm Mindy Tate, Executive Director for Franklin Tomorrow, and I've got our new Franklin Tomorrow Board President with me, Patrick Baggett. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So you've been on our board for a little while, and why are you excited about Franklin Tomorrow in 2021?
There's so much in store, and this year we've had a phenomenal pivot, like many have done in the community in the nonprofit segment, but we are looking forward to 2021 when we can get together and have these wonderful events like Breakfast with the Mayors and Frank Talks in person. So we look forward. Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to be in this room with our friends and fellow community members. It's so rewarding and fun to see all those faces and catch up at our wonderful events.
Well, we do have a small audience with us here this morning that we're all masked and are socially distant of our great partners, and Breakfast with the Mayors wouldn't be possible without our partners, starting with Pinnacle Financial Partners, who is our presenting partner, and Williamson Medical Center, who has been a great sustaining partner for Franklin Tomorrow over 2021, and we hope to carry that forward as we move into 2021. But we also have a host of other partners as well.
We do, and truly we have been so blessed by the partners in this room and viewing at home. And we want to, but specifically today, want to thank our platinum partners, Gresham Smith, Williamson County Association of Realtors, Hazen and Sawyer, and Patterson, Hardy, and Ballantyne Public Accountants. Again, in 2020 and even today, this organization and the engagement that we provide for the citizens of Franklin could not have happened and will not happen without your support. So truly, we really appreciate your support.
And we do hope to be back together later this year in 2021, and we hope to be able to return to having a great breakfast with our friends from Puckett's and Community Coffee or other partners who will help us make sure you get the day off to a good start when we're here in this room and it's packed and we can be safely back together. But until then, we are so happy to have the technology of Rolling Hills Community Church to help us stream this event, as well as it'll be replayed on our YouTube channels and on our Facebook Live channels as well. So we look forward to helping you stay engaged this year. That's our mission: engage the community, foster collaboration, and then advocate for a shared vision for the future of Franklin. So Patrick, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And hope you have a great day, but put your mask back on. You know, it's dangerous out here. No, I'm joking. Okay, well, it's Breakfast with the Mayors. We have breakfast here. Nobody is eating breakfast because that takes a lot of talent to do that with your mask on. So maybe it's takeaway breakfast. But I want to bring up Williamson County Mayor Rogers Anderson and Franklin Mayor Dr. Ken Moore and give them 8-10 minutes each to tell us what's happening in the community. And they can arm wrestle to see who goes first. Y'all can stand or sit.
Where do you want me?
Over there.
On the far side? Okay.
So, Rogers, how's things?
Things are very good. Thank you for having us. Thanks for what you do here with the Franklin Tomorrow over the many years in your leadership. And to Patrick, it's always good to see a young, new face take over chairmanship. I'm not sure that COVID hadn't hit him between the ears for him to take chairmanship. But he's a
Hey.
fine young leader, fine young man. So I know you had asked Ken and I to kind of talk about some of the things that are going on both in our cities and our counties. And let me say this first of all, that I think Ken and I, are so fortunate to live in a community that's got the leadership at the different levels that we've enjoyed over these last almost 1 year. The decisions that all 6 mayors and all of us make, working with our healthcare partners out at Williamson Medical Center, working with our ER doctors, working with our community leaders, city managers, the list just goes on and on. At one point, we were meeting 4 times a week virtually. We're down now to about 1 time a week that we spend anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. We digest a lot of things that Governor Lee sends to us. We look at other elements within our community, how we're doing to make the decision collectively. And I want to say personally a thank you to our public safety group, our emergency management, Williamson Medical Center, and our public health department. What a fabulous job they're doing out at our ag center. We converted that from an ag center early on to do the testing, and now we're doing the vaccine. We're doing appointments. If you're 75 and older, please get on the website and sign your name up. Unfortunately, we're about 6,000 behind, which we desperately need more of the vaccine. But the men and women, the National Guard, our different groups that we've got, I could not be more pleased. Our call centers, that takes 10 to 15 people a day just to handle all the phone calls that are coming in. So it's a Herculean effort of trying to lift up. What's going on in the county? We're trying to balance some of the directives that are coming out of Nashville with the legislation. As many of you know, some changes occurred in public education. That's one of the largest elements of our budget, results in about 70% of our total budget. So we're digesting all the things that are coming out of Nashville and how that has impacted our flow of revenue for the next couple of months as we put this budget together. I expect, in fact I know, that because we're doing dual roles of education, in the classroom, out of the classroom, we'll not get into that discussion because there's opinions, I get that, but it costs money to hire people to do what you would normally do in the classroom. Now you've got to have someone to also do it on the virtual side, particularly if you're running a double shift. So it's been a challenge for local government, but again, I'll circle back around to the people that have led the charge. We're very blessed here in Williamson County, and I know Ken feels that same thing. And finally, I want to say that it's a renewed interest to be able to work with mayors and city managers and other administrative people. I was talking to the commissioner a few moments ago, and in some communities, people and organizations do not always agree, and when they don't agree, it's very difficult for them to get things going. In this community, we've learned how to separate the message from what's best for our community. And oftentimes, we may disagree on a particular issue, but by collectively, we get there, and we get there as a group. It kind of reminds me of what's going on with so many of the sports teams. You may have one person have a bad day or a bad game or can't put the ball in the basket, but the other 4 will pick him up and carry him on through. And you should feel very good in our community that we've got that kind of leadership, that kind of team camaraderie. I know that's not a lot of data that you want, but I can recite data.
So let me ask you, the state has started work in earnest, it appears, on the 96 East widening project. Getting a lot of calls about the fires along the side of the road or the project, or questions about that?
So that's a state route through TDOT. That project is let. That project has it's being planned. It's not just being planned; it's being developed. And from Highway 96 from about Arnold Road heading toward the Rutherford County line. That will be a 5-lane, 2 lanes on each side center turn lane, all the way eventually to Rutherford County. TDOT is building that, so that should help us with the transportation to and from the Rutherford County Triune, Nolensville community within a period of time. We're very appreciative of TDOT. That actually occurred several years ago in phases, and now it's becoming a reality. But if you go up 30,000 feet and you look at all the road projects that are going on in Williamson County, Mindy, there's an awful lot of activity going on in our community. It just may not be on your road.
Well, the reason I asked about that, one of the reasons I asked is a couple years ago the county did a study that showed many of the cars traveling on county roads are coming from other locations, from other counties, but they're coming here to work or to shop, right? That makes you happy when you go to the mall and see those.
And we thank so many people for that, but of course leading the charge locally here is Matt Largent and his team to the efforts, and then working with Commissioner Roth, who's going to speak here in a few moments and tell us all these new businesses are going to be coming to Williamson County. I know he's going to make an announcement. I just know he is. I would not want him to let this audience and several thousand people down that are watching this and go back to Nashville. We have to call the governor. All he did was come down and talk about numbers. We're really looking, aren't you, Ken?
Rogers, you're always getting me in trouble. And I'd hoped to be able to highlight that Commissioner Roth was going to make a big announcement today.
Well, you can still do
it. Anyway, it's really good to be
it's
up
not
here with
often you get to see Dr.
You got
Ken
me
Moore.
speechless.
It's not often you get to see him just totally tongue-tied. So I'm finished.
Usually when you're around, he often gets tongue-tied just trying to keep up, right? Is that it?
No, Ken's much more intelligent. He chose a profession that he didn't have to do his profession by talking. He did it with his hands.
Great. Mayor Moore, what's going on in the city of Franklin? We're just going to ignore him. What's going on in the city of Franklin?
Well, first of all, I'd like to echo some of Roger's comments in that we are very fortunate that we have a county that likes to work together, and I applaud Roger's leadership during this very difficult time. He's corralled us all and led us in one of the most challenging times that we're ever going to see, whether we're talking about the pandemic, whether we're talking about the immunization, whether we're talking about just continued growth in our county. He's doing a great job, and we applaud you on that. As far as the city, we're surviving, and we're doing better than surviving, I think. The development in our community is still very brisk. It's on level or par with what we've seen in prior years. Our revenue stream is not as robust as it has been in the past, but it is positive. We've continued to provide all the services to our citizens. We've had no layoffs, and if you'll notice, there are a lot of projects in our community that continue to move forward, and some are going to end earlier than expected, and so we're excited about those. Because of the pandemic, we have not stopped. We've done a lot of planning to be able to fund our projects and make sure we have those revenue streams. The other thing is, I think that through Roger's leadership, that we've developed a great foundation for our future, whether we're talking about the city of Franklin, the other cities in the county, or Williamson County, and that is the talented workforce that we have, the fact that we have such great schools, and the fact that God's blessed us so much that we live in a very attractive place, whether we're talking about the geography or whether we're talking about how fortunate we've been to have a lot of great vision from prior leaders that helped our community look so much. But also, I can't help but mention that the Unity and the Chamber and the work that they're doing, the challenges that our Visitors Convention Bureau is going through now, since we've been very dependent upon tourism. for some of that revenue stream. And I see our realtors here this morning, and the Realtors Association has always been a great partner for us too. Our small businesses are still being challenged on a daily basis, but I look to the future as we stop the pandemic, stop the spread of COVID, that there's going to be a giant vacuum that's been created and an opportunity for our county and our cities in our county just because we have that great foundation. Bottom line, I think that we can look to the future and say that we are going to end the pandemic. I don't have a date yet, but I think that the fact that people are generally being very cooperative as far as those measures that are necessary to prevent the spread of the virus, such as use of facial coverings, hand washing, avoiding crowds, those are important things. And now that we have the immunizations, and I echo what Roger says, we need more supply of the vaccine. Get it to us. Our EMA has done a great job of planning, and they're ready to get those shots in people's arms. So at the end, I would say thank you to our healthcare workers. They've got to be really fatigued with all the challenges they've had. And so if you see your doctor, tell them thanks. If you see your nurse, tell them thanks. If you are a nurse, thank you so much. If you're an emergency room worker or other healthcare worker, thank you so much. And it's great to be with you today, Rogers. I just don't have any jokes for you this morning, but I'm still preparing.
Ken, that's a nice lapel pin you've got on there. It's nice to be in All-America City, isn't it?
We appreciate that partnership with Franklin Tomorrow, that where we, as partners, achieve that designation along with 11 other cities across America. And wow, quite honored. And of course, we continue to have other honors during the pandemic as far as one of the best places to live and one of the best places to retire. And so that doesn't come without a lot of work of a lot of people, whether we're talking about the 750 plus city workers or whether it's the citizens of our city and our county that are so supportive and so have so much community pride. I think that's one thing that we often overlook is how much pride people have in living here.
I bring it up because it really is also an economic development and an economic impact tool to be able to have those designations and attract national attention to Williamson County and the region. So I'm going to introduce Commissioner Roth, and then we're going to go off stage. But Bob Roth was sworn in on January 19th, 2019 by Governor Bill Lee to serve as the Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. He had served in that role since 2017, and under his leadership, the department has increased Tennessee's global footprint, and we'll hear more about that. He has more than 3 decades of experience in business and investment banking in Tennessee, and before joining the state, he held the position of CEO of Medical Reimbursements of America. He's a graduate of the Owen Graduate School of Management at Vanderbilt and has his BS from the University of Alabama School of Commerce and Business Administration. And we're going to leave the stage for the minute, and we'll welcome Commissioner Bob Roth. The stage is yours.
Thanks for being here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Mindy said, my name is Bobby Roth, and I have the great privilege of working for our state in our Department of Economic Development. And before I give you an update on what's going on across our state and what's going on in Middle Tennessee, I want to thank you to Jeff and to the mayors, Matt Largent, et cetera. Thank you guys for allowing me to be here. Now, what's so fun about coming to Franklin is that what Mindy did not mention is I graduated from Battleground Academy all of many moons ago, all of 2 miles from here in the old campus. And the last 3 companies that I worked for, one was headquartered in Brentwood and 2 were in Cool Springs. So Williamson County is always on my mind when it comes to recruiting. There's not a greater story, which we'll talk about, than talking about the great successes of your communities and your county. So with that, I thought what I would do this morning is begin with, while I don't have a PowerPoint, it's been now 10 months since I feel like I've spoken publicly and talked about the department. So if I'm a bit rusty today, please bear with me. But I did want to share a 1-minute video that really just kind of captures the last year of the world that we've lived in economic development. And so, Carly, if you would be so kind to roll the tape, as they say.
$64 million investment. $25 million, $87 million of capital investment.
Thank you. So you can imagine in today's world, the way we recruit companies looks very different than all of 10 months ago. And in the old world, it was boarding an airplane and going to their living room, whether it's in Asia or Europe or other parts of the globe, or in the U.S. or just right here in Tennessee, making sure that a company that already calls Tennessee home thinks of Tennessee and that community when it's time to expand. And so in this new world of Zoom calls and virtual tours, we have relied on our marketing and media to tell the story. And so I hope that last 60-minute infomercial basically told one story. And we have a lot of stories to tell. And our responsibility, Governor Lee has tasked us at ECD to really focus on a couple of issues. Number one, recruit companies, really good companies, high-quality companies to Tennessee. And number two, for the companies who already call Tennessee home, let's make sure they're happy. Let's make sure they're successful and they're thriving. And guess what? If they are, when it comes to phase 2 or phase 3, they're going to stay right here in Tennessee. And then we're responsible for our rural and community development initiatives. And while I realize Williamson County is the most prosperous community and has so much going for it and does not need the kinds of additional support that some of our more rural communities offer, that is our responsibility. And then we have our Launch Tennessee, our entrepreneurial ecosystem that we're responsible for, and finally our Tennessee Entertainment Commission. So we wake up every day and we come to work and we think about what great companies we can recruit. And as part of that conversation, we have a presence in 11 different countries. And these are in-country representatives that work for our state that are there in that country to tell the Tennessee story. And they have been very successful. And I say that to you because 1 out of 3 projects we have historically recruited come from foreign direct investment. And what we call FDI, that's the speak, and that's the foreign direct investment, and that's for those companies that are multinational companies that are interested in coming to the U.S. to manufacture their goods and services. And of course, when they do come to the U.S., we always hope that they will consider the South and then specifically Tennessee. And then we have 9 offices across the state, and those professionals, they're responsible for making sure that those companies that already do business here thrive. And what I mean by that is whether it's permitting, whether it's a local community needs, whether it's talking about the road system, workforce and labor, etc., they're there to help those companies. And then we have our group, our business development group, and they're responsible for industry verticals. And when I think of industry verticals, I think of, when you look at the state's GDP, the 3rd greatest GDP driver behind agriculture and tourism is advanced manufacturing. And inside of advanced manufacturing, I think about the automotive ecosystem, 1,000 companies that are part of the automotive ecosystem called Tennessee Home. And they represent hundreds of thousands of jobs, so you can imagine that's very important. And then we have life sciences, and we have food and beverage, and we have HQ, and we have technology, and we have healthcare services. So those verticals where we have hopefully some great expertise to recruit those companies. When I want to look at the last 2 years, because I think it's important to look where we were in 2019 and then how we performed in 2020. What's interesting about the data is it's pretty close to being identical. So we have a report card every year, and it's only a handful of data points, but what we track is the number of jobs that we create. When I say we create, the companies create them, the communities recruit them, and our job is to provide some incentives and some support. And so in 2019, we recruited, incented about 14,300 jobs. It was about 100 projects, about $3.3 billion in private capital investment. And then when we roll forward, we all know what happened all of close to 10 months ago. 2020 was challenging, but what's so interesting about the data is we still announced 100 projects, generating about 14,400 jobs and a CapEx of $5.6 billion. So all in all, we had a pretty successful 2020. Now, the backdrop of not being able to recruit those foreign direct investment companies created all kinds of challenges, and so that's where we did see a fall off. But nonetheless, I think we held our own. And then when I think about what's going on in Williamson County, I can tell you this. I do not, unfortunately, mayors, have an announcement this morning. Matt Largent would be up here, the governor would be here, and we would have that great announcement with the two of you as well. But I can tell you, we are continuing to recruit. And when you look at what goes on in Williamson County, I think of the quality of the workforce, the quality of your education, the quality of your life, the pro-business perspective, the low to no taxes. When you think of all of those great assets, I think of Williamson County. AAA rating, the bond agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, the federal government's only a AA rated credit. When I think of the most prosperous county, when it comes to the lowest unemployment, when it comes to the highest wages, when it comes to the great jobs. Now, that doesn't happen overnight, and the mayors know this. This takes years and years. But Williamson County has done a fantastic job. As I love to say, when we recruit companies, when they're looking at the Middle Tennessee area, when I think of the Middle Tennessee area, I think of Nashville and the 7 or so contiguous counties. All of those counties are in the conversation. And what I love about the Middle Tennessee communities is if Amazon says they're going to open up their Business Operations of Excellence Center and bring 5,000 great jobs, paying $150,000, the great news is Nashville doesn't just win, but everybody wins. Because those families and those companies and all of the resources and the ecosystem that support those companies, they don't all live in downtown Nashville or in the Nashville suburbs. A lot of them look at your community. And what is there not to love about Williamson County and Franklin, Tennessee? Did I tell you a few minutes ago that the last 3 companies I worked for, one was headquartered in Brentwood, 2 in Cool Springs. So the great news is I've got a little bit of credibility when I talk about your assets. And then when it comes to recruiting companies, Matt Largent is a fantastic recruiting partner. And Elizabeth McCreary helps him, and guys, this Williamson Inc. is just a great resource. And then the second most fun thing to do is recruit with your mayors. They are two, I call them my friends. They are so professional, and they resonate with the companies. As we talked off stage, what is so interesting is we have 95 counties. We recruit across the state, but not every county has the close partnership between the cities, the municipalities, and the county. And so to the mayors, thank you guys. It makes our job so much easier. And Matt, thank you as well. So as I think about what's going to happen as we move forward and what we have to look forward to in 2021, I can tell you this. While we've not been able to travel internationally for 10 months, I'm hoping those borders do open up again. And I say that to you because if you're the CEO of a multinational company and you're looking to invest $100 million, by and large, you're going to want to go to that community. You're going to want to meet the leadership. You're going to want to understand the workforce. You're going to want to understand the quality of life, the education, all the things you have going for you. And believe it or not, it's hard to do that from about 10,000 miles away over a Zoom. And I say that to you because when these borders do open up, I think we will again attract a lot of great foreign direct investment. And when I think about what we're going to continue to focus on is great global brands. Because believe it or not, we're defined by the companies and the brands that call Tennessee home. And I look around Williamson County, I think of Nissan North America HQ, and Mitsubishi North America HQ, and Community Health, and Tractor Supply, and Mars Pet Care. Schneider has a great presence here. And I think of the others because that matters. Because again, companies associate successful brands and they want to be a part of that ecosystem. So we're going to continue to focus on a couple of great brands and a couple of great companies. I can tell you the pipeline right now probably as robust as it's ever been. And I can thank the General Assembly because they fund our incentives. That's what we bring to the party. We try to be the one stop. So when a company comes to Tennessee and says, we're interested in Tennessee, show us your assets. Well, the last thing we're going to do is ever be accused of favoring one community over another community. And so we show them our portfolio of assets, and then it's up to that company to down select. And when they down select, that's when typically, if the local communities have not been in the conversation, that's when we call Matt, that's when we call the mayors, and that's when we take them to what I'll call the next very serious level. And then at the end of the day, the cost of relocating, the cost of standing up a new plant, the cost of hiring, the cost of everything, it's enormous. And where the state plays, hopefully, at least a practical role is we use state incentives to recruit these companies. And I'm thankful because the General Assembly allows us to do that. And I think what we've discovered very recently, because this has happened in Nashville, incentives do matter. And thank goodness you've got a great leadership team, and thank goodness we've got the resources at the state level to recruit these companies. So I want to think about going forward. I think about we're going to continue to focus on the great HQ jobs. Governor Lee has said, Bobby, let's go win as many HQ jobs. Okay, when I say HQ, I'm talking headquarters. Those are the companies that come to your community. The C-suite lives in your community. The C-suite gets involved in your community. The C-suite makes nonprofit decisions about where they're going to invest their capital. And the C-suite makes the decision where they're going to expand. So we're going to continue to resource and spend a lot of energy in the HQ area. We're going to continue life science, biopharma, life science. We've had 5 great announcements in the last year, and that's a new vertical. Now that's very difficult. The General Assembly says, well, let's just go start a great bioscience practice. Well, it takes time, and we're recruiting some of the brightest people, and those bioscience industries, they're clustered around the West Coast, Boston, the Northeast, and the great news is they're now looking at Tennessee. Those are the kinds of jobs. Those are, again, the great jobs, because typically with bioscience, life science, you bring the HQ on top of R&D, manufacturing, et cetera. And then I think about the EV. Now, I realize that I drive a Tahoe, so I would be at one extreme, but I can promise you this. We've spent a lot of energy recruiting electric vehicle. Okay, as you know, just south of here, General Motors this was probably our largest success as a state. $2.3 billion of capital to build a brand new EV plant in Spring Hill. And General Motors made the decision some years ago that they're not going to win with the Volt. They're going to go win with the Cadillac. So they're going to be building the Lyric Cadillac, which will be all electric vehicle, and that's going to be a huge win. And I say that to you, while it's not going to create new jobs today, it's going to create a whole ecosystem of suppliers. And I realize in Williamson County does not live and die by the automobile industry. At the same time, you're right next door. At the same time, you've got some of the great global HQs that are automotive related. So you got a lot of great things going. So it does matter. And then I think about VW, what they announced last year. They're going to build their Atlas. Their electric vehicle platform is going to be built in Chattanooga. Well, that's only another $800 million of capital in the ground. Great for goods and services in the ecosystem that build out those plants, and another 1,000 great jobs. So I can promise you we're going to continue to recruit and focus on the EV industry. When I think about what's going on also around Middle Tennessee, I think about, we all heard of Amazon. We know how they've been disruptive. But the great news is, since they announced their Operations of Excellence Center, and by the way, that 20-story tower is close to being ready to open in downtown Nashville, they've announced 2 advanced fulfillment centers. And you're going to say, well, Bobby, why does that matter? Well, these two particular centers, first of all, it's $250 million of capital to build one of these e-fulfillment centers. And secondly, it's about 1,000 jobs. And these are good jobs. Are they family wage jobs? They have a pathway to family wage jobs, but they're still good jobs. And it's a global brand. And then I think about Facebook. We announced a couple of months ago. Facebook is spending $800 million in Sumner County in Gallatin to build a data center. And I think about Google's data center in Clarksville. And you're going to say, well, why is that important? Well, A, it's an enormous amount of CapEx. It may be fewer jobs than what we would like, but they're very high quality jobs. Did I tell you about the global presence of having global companies call your state home? So when another company comes to look at Tennessee and they look at the portfolio of companies who already call Tennessee home and they look at the global brands, it's a good conversation. So as we roll forward, we're going to continue to focus on selling the Tennessee brand. We're hopeful we'll be able to travel again outside the borders. I can just simply leave you with 1 or 2 great observations. And I started this conversation about these great observations. Williamson County, Franklin, Tennessee, absolutely has done everything right. And you should be so proud of everything you guys have accomplished. Your citizens should be very proud. When you think about economic development, it's like the mayor said, it touches the very smallest business to the largest business, and all the businesses that support those businesses, and having a great place for your family to grow up, and the great schools, and all the great attributes you offer. So I'll just say thank you very much for this time this morning to talk about ECD and what we try to do every day, and what we try to do to bring great jobs to the state and retain great companies. And I can just tell you, in my 4 years, it's been absolutely the most fun and the greatest experience for me. So thank you this morning to Mindy and the mayors, and I will step aside and be quiet.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Roth. We are so pleased to have you here this morning and to hear some of the successes of the last year and what's coming in the future. We're going to be joined now by Matt Largent, CEO and President of Williamson, Inc., who's going to talk to us a little bit about the local report. And just last week, you presented your business barometer. Tell us a little bit what the business barometer is, and then we've got some slides for you to go through as well.
Well, thanks for having me, Mindy. I appreciate it. Before I do that, just thank you so much, Commissioner Roth, for your partnership with our community, for your partnership for communities across Tennessee. We are so lucky to have you lead the economic development efforts for the state of Tennessee. I appreciate it personally, and mayors too. I mean, it's hard to really understand how special this place is with the relationships we have and how much that matters to people in our community, people looking at our community, to know that the mayors like and respect each other and everybody understands the unique role they play in making this a great place for business and families. So it's gratifying I get to do what I do with the leadership we have in our state and our community. So thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, mayors. So last week we had an event called the Williamson Business Barometer, where we actually presented some survey results from our business community. And it's important, I think, especially in this difficult time of COVID, to understand really where we are and where we're headed, to help us plan as an organization, but then help the businesses plan as well to look toward 2021. So Mindy asked me to run through a few of these slides from the event last week, so I'm happy to do that now. So the first slide, we got about 1,000 people to participate in the survey. Over 60% of respondents represented companies with 50 or fewer employees. So we feel like we got a pretty broad scope of what businesses in Williamson County from a size standpoint are looking at when it comes to the future in their business and their economy. So we asked the question very simply, rate the Williamson County economy. So, you know, good or excellent, I mean, it's almost the entire chart, which is great. It's a great place to be for sure. But if you look at the next slide, this is what was the year earlier. It was 74% excellent. Again, I think any community in the country would take good or excellent, but we know what this says is there's cautious optimism when it comes to this economy for 2021. This is, I think, the most important piece, and the commissioner talked about it a lot, about jobs and good jobs and career pathway jobs. That's why headquarters are so important to Williamson County. 20% of all management jobs in the entire state of Tennessee are right here in Williamson County. And that's important because it is a career pathway. That's really important for our residents. When we recruit these companies nationally and internationally, it creates career opportunities for people who live here in this community. So we asked the question, do you expect, go back to that for just a second, do you expect your company to hire, stay about the same, or have cutbacks? If you look at what that graph says, it's staying about the same, or hiring is the majority. So even through a pandemic, this economy has been remarkably resilient. We know there's certain things through COVID that are going to change the way we do work. So this was expectations for remote work, whether obviously there's a big increase in remote work. And I think in Williamson County specifically, you had companies that we know based on previous survey results were already doing remote work. We're already doing flex scheduling. So it was less disruptive to our economy because our companies were used to it. We know this is going to be, I think, a recruitment and retention tool moving forward, and this will definitely change the landscape of communities across the country. So here's the big question. Has your business organization resumed hosting group meetings or conferences? This is exactly what the commissioner talked about travel, international travel. We know they haven't by and large. And then we ask, okay, we know you're probably not. When are you going to? So if you look at Q1, Q2, Q3, it looks like for most people it's Q3. Getting back to it, well, not most people are not sure. There's still a lot of uncertainty when it comes to COVID. We think it's that third quarter when things get back to normal depending on vaccines and other factors. But again, this shows the uncertainty in the community. And then I think the final slide, we know one of the issues in Williamson County is around affordable and attainable housing. It has been for a while. The realtors are here with us today. Residential real estate has really had a strong year last year, continues to have a strong year this year, but we know that's one of the challenges that we face in Williamson County is attainable housing. So City of Franklin's doing a lot of things, working on that. They've even got something tonight, I think at a work session, where they're going to address attainable housing specifically. So that's just a brief look at some of the questions that we answered. I think we could talk a lot longer about trends and surveys looking forward, but I think it's important to know, as good as things are here in Williamson County, and they are, we're really focused on how we can make those things even better for the people who live in our community.
Thank you so much, Matt. And we wanted to share that with you because we think that's part really of the full picture of understanding economic development and its impact on our community. And I think often that people, when they hear about a company coming here and getting an incentive either at the state level and or maybe at the local level, don't understand that how that impacts them. They just think about it means more people on the roads, but really it has a positive impact on their quality of life as well through taxes and other things. So my question, I guess, first will be, and we saw that 60% of the people responding to the Business Barometer, the Outlook survey, were businesses 50 employees or smaller. How will the state support all the small business and unemployed during the pandemic crisis and beyond into 2021 and into 2022?
So, Mindy, the CARES Act provided the first series of safety nets for the small companies. There was the first round, and there was a second round, there's a third round. Where the state participated is we used some of the CARES Act dollars that the state received to create another layer of assistance to the small businesses. At the end of the day, the best news is, I think, for those companies and those businesses that had been able to survive, hopefully it'll be better, improved sailing going forward. So, but at the end of the day, there are so many other states and other communities where the small businesses truly have basically disappeared.
And Matt, you all are working more closely with organizations like SBA and others. So you have a meeting later today, right? At
Tomorrow,
11?
actually. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we have a live, free, virtual Zoom event with the state director of SBA, where people on the call can ask questions live about the Paycheck Protection Program, the latest round. It's in partnership with the Nashville Chamber, Murray Alliance, Bellevue-Harper Chamber, and the Spring Hill Chamber. So that's tomorrow at 11. Go to our website, williamsonchamber.com, and sign up if you haven't. But we've been really focused on helping companies meet their immediate needs last year, and the PPP was a way to do that. And we actually saw in Williamson County a higher than a normal or average percentage of people accessing those funds last year. And I will say, too, economic development, it's an ecosystem. And those small companies depend on those large companies to be able to sell their goods and services to. So the fact that our large companies can go remote as easy as Mars or Nissan as Tractor Supply Company means that people kept their jobs and they had purchasing power to buy from our small businesses. So it all works together. So when you see an announcement like Mitsubishi coming or Nissan coming, that means more opportunities for our small businesses across Williamson County and Middle Tennessee.
And you called it an ecosystem, and that's true. And people who live here, the residents, and the quality of life that we have here are part of enhancing that ecosystem, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's really important. And these companies, when they come from out of state or out of the country, create those career opportunities for local residents here or for kids and grandkids of people who go off to college and want to move back. That's the great thing. I mean, Rogers knows. He's got all his grandkids here now. And I remember when he started, well, he didn't have grandkids, but that wasn't the case. And so because they're career opportunities, that means there are opportunities for them to come back and be closer to family.
And I know a sector that both mayors are very concerned about is tourism, and the loss of those visitors and those tourism dollars. So talk a little bit about how we can positively impact those businesses and those employees and employers who are needing us to stick with it while we're under these restrictions.
Well, Mindy, I think one of the most severely impacted employment groups in our county and cities has been the hotel and the restaurant, the hospitality industry. And they've tried to be creative, but it continues to be a challenging time, particularly since now's the time of year people aren't traveling, we aren't having conventions. It's going to be a challenge moving forward how we reinvigorate those particular areas. I know that we've had some discussions with Matt. I know that we've got a focus group with the Black Business Coalition to discuss some of the things that they're doing. But I think that we have to make sure, number one, that we're creating a safe environment for our visitors. Our visitors want to go to a place that's safe. And so that's why it's so important that we use our mask and have all those procedures and so on. And I would urge people to support our local restaurants in some form or fashion, whether it's carry out. Most of them are doing a good job of practicing those physical distancing parameters, but still that's not enough to keep them alive, and hopefully the CARES Act money is helping some. So we're working very closely with the Visitors Convention Bureau to make sure that we're having input and that they're having input to us on those things that'll help them reinvigorate that particular segment of our economy.
Rogers, you are facing a change in the leadership in your Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Ellie Chen has done a fantastic job over the last few years. What's the story that Williamson County has to tell in the coming years?
Well, I think that what Ken has said is important, along with everyone else on this stage. But let's not forget what got us here. Let's put our infrastructure, let's put our dollars where we have had success over the last 20 and 25 years. Let's look at our schools, and at the same time, we've got to embrace the technology that's available today. That even during this pandemic that we've had, it's forced and driven us to be able to find more ways to get that message out and to do our jobs better. It's like any business. All of us up there, we've been in businesses where we've had a bad quarter or a bad year, and you have to look at your core mission. You have to look at what got you here and to develop that. This next 12 months is going to be critical for the success of Williamson County for the next 10 and 15 years. And so the state has got to help us. We need to help them and where we can. But we're all this ecosystem the commissioner talks about. It's critical that what goes on in Franklin and Brentwood and now Nolensville and Spring Hill, Thompson Station and Fairview, I don't think I left any one of them out, that we all realize we're part of a bigger system for so many operations that go on. Our unemployment is still one of the lowest, but it's 2.5% higher than what it was just 15 months ago. That's nothing to brag home about, and to those families that are struggling out there, we need to keep those taxes low. We need to provide those things that can get them back on their feet as quick as we possibly can. So it's a challenge, but you've got senior leadership that in Ken and up in Brentwood and some of the other communities that have gone down this road before, and they're going to make good decisions. And when you're in a group of men and women as mayors and city managers with all that wealth of knowledge, that's important. It's kind of like the Super Bowl coming up. You've got one old, they call him the GOAT, and you've got one the kid. And I didn't know what GOAT stood for the other day until greatest of all times, and I'm an agriculture boy. That's not what we thought as a GOAT. But I will tell you this, I invite us to come back in 3 years and look at the things we're still doing today, that Ken's leadership and all of our cities are doing, laying that foundation. It's tough what we're having to go through right now. But keep your feet on the ground, keep your eyes focused on the target, and we'll get there once again, and we'll be very blessed with what we've done.
It's great to hear. And you mentioned tourism, and you mentioned us being part of a region and the area. I'm sure that for many years, Franklin and Williamson County used to say we were 150 years and 17 miles from Nashville, given our historic nature. But the Christmas Day bombing and the devastation that occurred in the entertainment area there, are people thinking that Nashville's closed? Or do we want to, how will the impact of rebuilding that area and its efforts, can that be a positive for tourism and economic development?
Well, first of all, the events of the morning of Christmas, there's no really nice way to spend what transpired other than to say how quickly can the city of Nashville respond and rebuild. But when I think of what goes on in Nashville, tourism is such a large part of the Nashville DNA. And when you look at the revenue and you look at where most communities and counties may have had a modest impact when it comes to collection of tax revenue, when you look at what's going on in Nashville, because it's so tourism, hospitality, entertainment is such a part of their DNA. I'll say this, the city will come back. I think the city passed some significant tax increases that may not be popular. Nonetheless, Mayor Cooper felt like that's what they needed to do. But when I also think of Nashville, let's share what we do know about what we all enjoy is that it is a great entertainment destination. It is the great headquarters for healthcare, and you have the greatest healthcare here. And then I think of our airport, and I think the $1.2 billion, and you're going to say, well, why does the airport impact us? Well, I can promise you when we're recruiting companies, the fact that a company can come to Middle Tennessee and take nonstop flights to 90 different cities internationally, can cross over the pond in Heathrow at British Airways and, connect to another 125 destinations. I can tell you, we saw what happened in Memphis when they were dehubbed. It is devastating, and thank goodness Nashville was able to rebound years ago when American Airlines dehubbed at Nashville. Southwest stepped in, and now 18 carriers fly in and out of Nashville, about 550 daily flights. So that's all to say, Nashville will recover, and hopefully as Nashville recovers, so will all of the other communities that have had a slower recovery than perhaps Williamson County. You're very fortunate, Mindy.
We are very fortunate. I have one final question. We always ask people as they register for this event if they have a question to submit. And I'm going to pose it to the commissioner first, but each of you are welcome to answer it. What excites you most about Tennessee's economic development efforts in 2021, or what excites you most about 2021, but also what keeps you up at night?
Well, Mindy, I have a little bit of an idea into what our pipeline looks like. And unfortunately, every project requires a non-disclosure agreement. And Matt knows that well, your mayors know that well. And in that world, when you breach a non-disclosure, they just delist you as a city. So I'm going to be quiet about that, but just simply say that I'm very, very, very excited about a couple of opportunities where we in Middle Tennessee and the state are recruiting some great companies. What keeps us up at night is simply the inability to travel globally to go recruit those companies to Tennessee. Great.
Mayors or Matt, what are you excited about for 2021? And
Sure. I really think it's getting a chance to work with the people on stage and getting a chance to work with other community leaders as well as we move towards recovery this year. I think that's, it's what Roger said. Economic development, it's not that complicated. It's focusing on the fundamentals, right? I mean, it's the foundation you build, and that has been built in this community over the last several decades with the public school system, the low crime rate, the AAA rated community. I mean, there's so many things that we have going for us that when things turn around globally and nationally, we're primed to capture because of the work of people that came before us. So that makes me excited about this community. Certainly what keeps me up at night is just what we saw in the business barometer, uncertainty. Uncertainty is that big challenge, and uncertainty is the pandemic and the vaccines. And I'll say what Mayor Moore said earlier, echo that. Please, when you're out, be out safely, shop safely, dine safely. We're really encouraging people not to stop commerce, but go out and do it in a safe and responsible way for yourself and for everybody else.
any final words, mayors? Any thoughts? Uh-oh.
What excites me, Mac Hatcher is going to be completed this year. I wish I had a larger audience because it would have gotten a bigger roar. I mean, that's kind of an inside joke because we waited so long and put so much emphasis and a lot of money in getting that particular road finished. But it's going to be done early. And we're so excited about so many other projects, infrastructure projects that we're doing now. What keeps me up at night? I think I still have to say that concerns about the pandemic continue to be a focus that I mull over in the middle of the night, and just making sure that we don't let our guard down. I mean, that would be one of the biggest challenges we would have if we let our guard down now and depended too much on one thing. So keep up the good work, Franklin, Williamson County.
I'll kind of echo what they've said. The uncertainty, I think, is important, but we're still investing in the things over the last 12 to 18 months. We're doing a lot of internal evaluations of our systems that do not mean a thing to anyone except to having a good solid, the buildings that we got, the roofs and the things like that. But we are looking very deep at a lot more technology and trying to figure out this. The one thing that really concerns me as I looking out into the future, and it's because for Ken and I, and even the commissioner, we've seen our community grow, but in the outlying areas, outside the city areas, I'm very concerned. I am appreciative of what Middle Tennessee Electric and United is doing, but we have got to get
Broadband.
we've got to get the ability for our children to learn in the utmost furthest points off from their computers, and we're not there yet, and we've got years to go. I can only imagine in some of the rural areas, Mindy, how difficult it is for children not to go to school and they can't communicate at home. And if you're in Brentwood and Franklin, for the most part, you can get internet. But out in our rural parts of our state, it is still not, rural parts of our county, it's just not available, or it's not reliable enough that you can really do those things. And as the mayor, that concerns me. What steps are we doing? What steps are we taking? And Middle Tennessee United, they're really stepping out there through the grants of federal government, but it's just not fast enough that we need to, and so we need to come up with some other solutions.
Well, thank you all for being here this morning, and we will continue to host Breakfast with the Mayors both virtually, and we hope that we'll be able to be together again soon. Our monthly Frank Talks is always the second Monday of the month, so February 8th we'll be hosting that about people to know from our African American community, and we're excited about that. We have some other exciting announcements coming up. We're asking you to vote for Franklin Tomorrow as Best Nonprofit Agency in the Williamson's Best Reader's Choice Awards. And you can visit williamsonbest.com or visit our website, franklintomorrow.org, to find out how to do that. And in February, we'll be launching our podcast, Franklin Tomorrow Presents Front Porch Conversations. This will be both an audio and a visual podcast, and to get notification when the episodes are available, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And to the point of all the 2020, we saw a huge increase in viewership of our programming through technology and reaching out, and we will continue, whether we are in person or we remain virtual, to offer those opportunities for you to connect in that way. Again, the next Frank Talks will be on February 8th, and our next Breakfast with the Mayors will be on April 27th. We look forward to talking with you. Please stay safe. Please follow us and stay engaged in our community. That's so important as we head into 2021. And we will have the mayors of all of our cities together at a future Breakfast with the Mayors. We normally have them in January, but we'll have them all together later this year. So thanks so much. Go out and make it a great day, but stay safe.